All right, we have a lot to get to for you this morning when it comes to your money. Let's begin with fresh new CBS News polling on Americans' view of the economy as President Trump announces his latest tariff blitz. Take a look at this. The amount of people who believe the U.S. economy is doing well, that's increased. It's now at 39%. But those with lower incomes are feeling less confident than those who make six figures. And we're seeing these latest numbers as the U.S. trade deadline looms. The president says talks with Canada. They're now in limbo after the prime minister announced plans to recognize a Palestinian state. But South Korea has inked a deal with tariffs on Seoul set at 15%. And the uncertainty over tariffs pushed the Federal Reserve to, again, hold interest rates steady, ignoring pressure from the White House. Trump's top trade advisor, Pete Navarro, joined the takeout yesterday, slamming that decision.
The problem is he simply doesn't understand the power of Trumpnomics to actually grow our economy without creating inflation. And for the last 6 months, we've seen every inflation indicator go down. We've seen positive indicators. And I don't know what this guy's thinking.
CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand joins us from the White House with more on all of this. Natalie, good morning. So much to look into, but tell us about these trade deals and tomorrow's deadline.
Good morning, Errol. Yeah, we got 1 day to go. The latest deal that has been announced is the one with South Korea, as mentioned. Goods from that country will now face a 15% tariff, according to the administration, which is significant when you think about things that are imported, such as cars, car parts. And then as part of that, the president says that South Korea has agreed to give the U.S. $350 billion for investments owned and controlled by the U.S. Now, unclear how that would work, but similar to what we saw with the deal with Japan. And this is kind of a theme in these deals. If you look at the ones made so far, promises of investment in the United States to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars, as well as opening those countries' markets to U.S. goods. But questions remain about big trading partners that we don't yet have deals with, such as, Mexico, Canada, talks with China underway. And then we also know that the president has made good in a new executive order on his threatened tariff of 50% for Brazilian goods, although we're hearing there's reports that there are exemptions for some top exports from that country, such as orange juice and civil aircraft. But then other items, such as coffee, prices could go up. The president addressing concerns about tariffs raising prices. Take a listen.
Critics said that our tariffs would hurt the economy, but the data shows the exact opposite, and the exact opposite is happening. The U.S. Treasury has taken in $150 billion from tariffs, and we'll be adding about $200 billion next month for totals that nobody's ever seen before, frankly.
But again, tomorrow is the big day, and moving forward, economists watching to see how the increased tariffs really ultimately do impact prices in the short and long term. Errol.
And Natalie, let me ask you the latest on the Epstein issue. The Justice Department now says grand jury documents they're pushing to unseal only contain testimony from 2 witnesses, none of which are victims. Is that really what people are pushing to see? I know Democrats are pushing for much more information to be shared.
Yeah, there's bipartisan calls for more information to be shared, including from the public. And in new court filings, we've learned that the grand jury in the Epstein and Maxwell cases did not hear directly from alleged victims, but rather their accounts through these 2 witnesses, an FBI agent and also an NYPD detective. Now, experts say that that's not a surprise, that that's who would have talked to the grand jury. But again, it raises questions about what the DOJ is moving to unseal here. If it is unsealed, again, critics say it falls short of what they want to see, all of the files and documentations. We also, Errol, have a new statement from the family of Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who, again, sadly died by suicide earlier this year. But her family, since her name was mentioned in the news by the president, confirming that she was one of the Mar-a-Lago employees poached by Epstein, according to the president, they're raising questions about the timeline, saying that she was approached by Maxwell in 2000, but the falling out between Trump and Epstein happened years later, according to them. So they're raising questions about that. They also say if our sister could speak today, she would be most angered by the fact that the government is listening to a known perjurer, a woman who repeatedly lied under oath and will continue to do so as long as it benefits her position, referring to Maxwell, who Giuffre, in interviews, described her as the mastermind of the sex trafficking operation. Of course, those are allegations that Maxwell and her attorneys have denied as they try to appeal this case. But it really just shows that, in light of all of this new reporting, the calls for more information around this case only continue to intensify, Errol.
Yeah, really interesting updates there. Natalie, thank you. For more analysis on the trade deals and tomorrow's deadline, we're going to speak now with Lori Bettinger. She's the president of BankAlliance and the former director of the Troubled Asset Relief Program. Lori, good morning. Thanks for being with us. So if we take a look at what was said yesterday by Chairman Powell, the Fed says the elevated economic uncertainty is a reason they're keeping rates steady. Are we talking about tomorrow's tariff deadline? What do you make of that?
Good morning. I think it's a little bit of tomorrow's tariff deadline and also the tariffs that are already in place and how that has the ability to impact prices going forward, which always comes down to inflation, I think, as far as the Federal Reserve is concerned. And we just heard from a few people talking about the fact that there really hasn't been sort of a huge uptick in inflation so far. But the question that I think a lot of economists, and certainly it seems like the Federal Reserve is asking, when will we get inflation? Because for the most part, tariffs tend to cause some, and that timing is what everyone seems to be waiting on.
So if these tariffs hit tomorrow, is it reasonable to think that inflation is coming? Is that what our viewers should expect?
I think it might be coming, but that doesn't mean it might be coming tomorrow. I think what we've seen over the past few months is in anticipation of tariffs, of expecting to pay more for imports, a lot of companies sort of try to build up their inventory, the amount of items they have available to sell to all of us. So I think that in many cases, people have been able to delay price increases. But over time, I don't know if that's sustainable. Like perhaps you've sold down your inventory, or you might just say as a company, perhaps even a smaller company, hey, so far I've been paying those increased costs, but I can't do that forever. Eventually, I might have to raise the prices a little bit so that I share some of those extra expenses with my customers.
So always a good idea to have money on hand, but save up even more, it sounds like you're saying to folks watching. Lori Bettinger,
Exactly.
Great to chat with you. Thank you very much.